Now, the most live local talk with Paul Vandenberg.
We are back at Talk 1300, 98.7 FM. We're at the airport this morning. We expected right now to have Phil Calderon on, but he will not be on with us this morning. They bagged us yesterday, told us he couldn't come on, and I don't understand why, but I do understand why, and they have promised me that he will be on at some point, but they didn't feel as though this was the appropriate time. But he was at the Mass Transit Committee meeting last night, which I would have loved to have talked to him about, but we also know that Jennifer Whalen was there last night, a member, Republican member of the Albany County Legislature, and she was there last night, and she had a lot to say, and she joins us now. Jen, how are you?
Hi, good morning.
You know, the first thing I read this morning.
Meeting last night, craziest thing I ever saw.
Crazy's the word, because the first headline I saw this morning, Jen, was Albany County Legislature Mass Transit Committee meeting evolves into chaos. Tell us a little bit about what happened there last night.
So, Mr. Calderon came in, and I was very impressed that he did, and he did what he should have done. He's obviously, I think he's probably been under a lot of stress and pressure based on what they've done to him at the airport with such an exemplary record. And he came in with his COO. He presented the capital plan, $283 million for the next 5 years. And as soon as, the chairwoman of the committee, one of my county legislative colleagues, said in the beginning that the questions were going to be limited to just asking questions about the capital plan. And I anticipated that they would try to shut me down. So, I basically, first I complimented his record. I told a little story about how I was almost, in an airplane crash where my entire family and I died and was afraid to fly for a long time until recently. I've really overcome that fear because of the fact that, the Albany Airport in the last 5 to 6 years is just so stellar now. And last year, Mr. Calderon and his team, under his CEO leadership, achieved a perfect score for the airport for the safety record in all of, the United States of America, which is really impressive. We have a perfect score when it comes to safety, thanks to Mr. Calderon. And really, that's all I care about.
Right.
So,
but Calderon came.
They didn't like it that I was pointing all of this out.
Okay.
And I said, basically, after I went through his exemplary record, I asked them if they were comfortable with the fact that this $283 million capital plan was going to be executed without him at the helm. Basically, he's been made into a lame duck. So I asked who was going to oversee, all of these projects and this $283 million outlay of money over the next 5 years at the airport. And I got shut down right away. There was, I was reprimanded. I was, Ally McLean Lane, the chairwoman, called on Joanne Cunningham out of turn. She's not even on the committee. There were other committee members that had questions. There were tons of county legislators there, both Democrats and Republicans in the legislature are, very upset about this.
Okay, tell me, Joanne Cunningham.
There are other Democrats, and then some of the other Democrats who were, I think, on board originally with signing on, to call to have his contract renewed were scared into towing the party line. But I think that the board of directors of the Albany County Airport, they should all be removed or resign.
Yep.
If I was on that board, I'd be resigning now. Where they're like such yellow bellies, they couldn't even come in and defend themselves. Why? Probably because their press agents and their lawyers are telling them not to. This to me is the biggest cover-up, and whoever is complicit in it is going to be, they're going to be embarrassed for themselves.
Okay. When you use
that they went along with, trying to keep the truth and transparency away from the public. This is not a monarchy. This is not a communist regime. We are elected officials representing people in our district, and the people want to know. That's why we're here.
That's right. And when you say cover up, you mean starting with McCoy?
Sure, everything, I think. Why did the board get rid of this guy?
Right.
He did Calderon, nicest man, 30-year master plan, had never been updated. He updated it, got us all this federal and state money. And McLean Lane, who works, in the assembly, she kept saying, "Oh, thank you, Governor Hochul and whoever federal, for giving us this money. This is money they gave us. This is the taxpayer money.
Right.
This money, this 200, all this federal and state grant money that, by the way, Calderon got for us because he was smart enough to go in there 5 years ago and update a master plan that hadn't been updated in 30 years, which is disgraceful. He got this money. He got this money for us, but this is the taxpayers' money.
Yep.
It's not Governor Hochul's money, not the federal government's money. It is our money.
You mentioned that Cunningham McLean Lane. Was Cunningham in the room and McLean, as the chairwoman of the Mass Transit Committee, called on her?
Yes, I had other people like Sam Fine, an Albany County Democrat, who signed the letter with all of us. He was shut down. He couldn't ask any questions. He voted no to not. He couldn't ask any questions. Okay. Gil Ethier, didn't really ask a question. He just complimented Calderon and his, on the great job he's done at the airport. And then abstained, but they wouldn't let him when they shut down the meeting. So they shut down the meeting. They wouldn't take any more questions. And there were other county legislators there who are allowed to ask questions once the committee members are finished. And not even all of the committee members were allowed to ask questions. The meeting was adjourned, stopped pretty much after my question. It was over.
Right.
It was all done. We're talking. Cunningham was there. She is not on the committee, but she raised her hand and said something. I don't know. I didn't even pay attention to her. I don't know what she said, and I don't really care what she was saying. But say they had a meeting on the capital plan, and that the Mass Transit Committee met, and yes, isn't that swell? We are all doing a great job, but and then shut down Whalen or anybody else that brings up something that they don't want talked about or sunlight shine
Jennifer,
on, so.
Jennifer Whalen's with me. Jen, I read the stories about last night, and I came away with a couple of things kind of bothered me a little bit. One of them is, it sounds like she adjourned the meeting and then they took a vote afterwards. Is this vote legal that was taken last night, in your opinion?
That is an interesting question. I don't. First of all, they were telling Gil Ethier that he couldn't abstain because he wanted to abstain, so then he voted with his party or something. And I don't even know if she had the right to adjourn the meeting. But then she did adjourn the meeting, and then she sent the comprehensive plan, out for a vote to go to the floor or out of committee, and I voted no. So, I think we'll be looking into that procedurally and rewatch the tape again.
Right.
We should have probably called a point of order. There were Democrat county legislators in that room who were not on the committee, who were even trying to mouth words to me about what to do and what was happening. My colleagues Grimm and Bergdorf started yelling that they were that they objected, but the whole thing was out of order.
Right, it was chaos.
That's not right.
Right, it was chaos. Tell me, we're talking to Jennifer Whalen, a member of the Mass Transit Committee on the Albany County Legislature, who was in the meeting of that meeting, or was in the middle of that meeting last night that erupted into chaos, the Mass Transit Committee meeting. Jen, at any point, did anybody say, hey, Mr. Calderon's here, can we bring him up and ask some questions?
No, because in the beginning she said that it was limited to just doing the capital, asking questions on the capital plan. And so, of course, I wasn't having any of that, but I tied my question to the capital plan, which was, how are we going to run this capital plan without you they've basically created a lame duck in you by not extending your contract. And this is a $283 million capital plan, and you have a lot of institutional knowledge and history. And so, boom, that was it. It was over.
Okay.
Done.
Tell me.
No, nobody was calling up anybody. No, I had a notebook full of questions.
Right. Go back to the beginning of this, when the agenda first came out, because I'm of the impression, and tell me if I got this wrong or not, that that one of the board members was supposed to be the person doing the presentation. That would have been Kevin Hicks, the vice chairman.
Yeah.
But he wasn't there. No board members were there. Talk about that.
Well, if they came, they should have all come. They should be defending themselves if they didn't do anything wrong. If they haven't colluded with anybody to give them a job and get rid of someone else, then what's the problem, right? But maybe they're attorneys. I'm an attorney, and I would probably advise, if I was counsel for any of those board members, I'd be telling them to resign, and I certainly would be telling them not to come and answer questions in front of a committee about, duties that they might have violated, may have violated as board members. I mean, I was surprised to see that he was coming, and I was not surprised to see that he did not come.
Okay.
And I knew Calderon would come. I just knew it. I knew he would come because I knew he would come because he's that kind of guy. It's his job to come, and he came.
He has nothing to hide.
It's their job to come and explain too, but they're hiding for some reason.
Not one member. Have you had any private conversations, if you don't mind me asking, with any of the members of the board of directors in the last 10 days?
No.
And let me also ask you this. In the last 10 days, have you come to a personal conclusion as to why Dan McCoy is doing this to Phil Calderon?
No, I don't speculate on things like that. No, I have no idea. I don't know what goes on in Dan McCoy's head and, what kind of relationship they had. I just know, what I've seen in the paper, that he went to Calderon's office a few years ago and said, your contract is up and, I want to take over your job. And he had, he had 2 more years left. I have no idea. I can't speculate on any of that.
Right. Okay, I got it. Gil Ethier, you mentioned a few moments ago, he spoke last night and praised Calderon, expressed frustration, but he also said something else. He said, quote, "I believe it's going to become a bigger news circus by doing stuff like this. There's not the votes to defeat this. It's going to get passed, and I'm going back to Cohoes. I abstain." But you tell us that then they strong-armed him into voting. Tell us about that.
Right. I love Gil. I grew up in Cohoes, and he's a good family friend, and he's a champion for Cohoes, and he's got a lot of common sense. And, I really respect and admire him and what he has to say. So he tried to, he's 100% right, and he tried to abstain. I don't know exactly why he tried to abstain, but they wouldn't let him. And so then he just said, "I'm going to vote with my conference." So.
Okay, isn't that kind of odd that somebody says they're going to abstain and then they kind of get forced into it?
Yeah, well, it just shows that, it's the pressure that's being exerted on some of the Democrats, and they're falling in line. So a lot, but a lot of we have quite a few that think that this is just as egregious as I do, and they're doing the right thing.
Right.
I'm fine.
Right. It sounds like
and there are others too. Andrew Joyce, his brother. Epicoro. Anyway, Matt Miller.
There's more. Yeah, there's more. There's more. Well, they say, you get a group.
And I think more will jump on. I think more will jump on because how are they going to go home to their districts and face their constituents?
Okay.
When they say that they support this kind of behavior.
Okay.
We were asking questions that were legitimate questions. They
yes,
should
you were.
be answered.
No question. Give me a feel. Here's an impossible question, but I'll let you go after this. What's next here? What do you see coming next here in this mess?
What I would ideally like to see is Calderon stays on, and the board of directors, they all resign, and we get a new board.
Okay, you need a new board.
I don't know if he can work with these people. I read in the paper that they were already being, not not very friendly or nice to him or wouldn't look at him or speak to him. But I would like to see, some fresh faces on the board, and that could work with him.
Right.
That's
Well, it sounds like
to see. What do I think is going, and then refer this. Definitely, this needs to be it's just getting it's
worse and worse.
People are just getting deeper and deeper into it.
Yep. Yeah,
and
they are.
I think it should be referred to the Inspector General. Like they're just if you colluded with somebody to give them a job at a public benefit corporation and push out someone that is has done a great job for no reason, and you haven't given him any performance evaluations and compliance with the contract, that's really bad.
You're right. No kidding. Jen, it's always good to talk. Thank you for your time.
Yes, you have a nice day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jennifer Whalen, everybody, who was in the middle of that meeting that, as the headlines say this morning, devolved into chaos. And this, make no question about it, folks. Allison McLean is the problem here last night. And Cunningham was in the room. She's there. She's another problem. But it really all starts with Dan McCoy. And McCoy has been silent on this. There is chaos erupting here, and Dan's been silent. I mean, it's a remarkable thing we're watching, I think. All right, 8:26. The weather and ABC News 10. Steve Caparizzo are next.